For 7 years, a vast, uncountable multitude of eastern nomadic raiders, Midian, Amalek, and the people of the east, has swarmed the Levantine fields at every harvest. This is an irregular, overwhelming mass of thousands of camels, consuming everything in its path. They leave absolutely nothing alive in their wake. They strip the terraced hills entirely bare, driving off every sheep, every ox, and stealing every last measure of grain. Look at this natural limestone basin. This is the claustrophobic reality for an ordinary young man named Gideon. Forced to hide away from the roads, he sits down in a hollowed rock pit to beat out small handfuls of wheat by hand. He works in a state of exhaustion, warily watching the surrounding hills for any sign of the raiders. The entire nation is paralyzed by a superior force. Survival has been reduced to hiding scraps of food in literal holes in the ground. A traveler sits calmly under a nearby terebinth tree and delivers a completely unexpected greeting. He calls Gideon a mighty man of valor. Gideon does not humbly accept the title. He delivers a fierce, near-despairing protest, demanding to know why all this disaster has found them and where God's historical wonders have gone. People often read this argument as a sign of weak faith or an assumption that Gideon doubted divine power. But the 19th century commentator, the Malbim, points out the exact opposite. Gideon never questioned God's power. He only questioned why God had hidden his face from Israel. His fierce complaint is precisely his qualification to lead. Gideon firmly believes he is unworthy of the task. He points to his two physical realities. His clan is the absolute weakest in the tribe of Manasseh, and he is the youngest son in his father's house. Because Gideon argued so passionately over God's vanished mercy, rather than begging for his own safety, he proved his heart was completely bound to Israel. That protest made him the exact right man to save them. Still cautious, Gideon asks for a sign. He brings the traveler a modest offering of a young goat, unleavened bread, and broth. The traveler touches the food with his staff. Instantly, fire erupts from the raw rock, consuming the offering entirely, and the traveler vanishes. This event proved a highly specific theological rule. Sacrifice belongs to God alone. A mere messenger cannot accept an offering. The fire proved that God himself was present. That night, a terrifying command arrives. Gideon must tear down his own father's altar to the local idol, the Baal, and cut down the wooden Asherah pole standing beside it. He is also ordered to take a 7-year-old fattened bull belonging to the townsmen. They had specifically vowed this animal to the Baal, planning to sacrifice it when Midian's 7-year grip finally broke. Gideon is told to sacrifice it on an altar built from the idol's own ruins. By burning the idol's prized bull with the wood of its own sacred pole, Gideon demonstrates a blunt truth. The Baal is entirely empty and powerless. At grey dawn, the townsmen discover the ruined stones. They gather in anger, demanding that Gideon's father, Joash, bring out his son to be executed. Joash answers them with a logical trap. If the Baal is holding back his vengeance, why should you fight for him? And if he wants to exact vengeance but cannot, why save a god who cannot save himself? The Baal remains silent all night. Gideon survives the trap and is branded with a new name, Yerubbaal. Let the Baal contend with him. This night raid was a fundamental prerequisite for everything that followed. Divine rescue was structurally impossible while the people still relied on the Baal. The false structures had to fall first. Look at the sheer scale of the Valley of Jezreel. The massive eastern horde crosses over and fills this entire expanse, preparing to strike. The Spirit of the Lord clothes Gideon in resolute strength. He lifts a physical ram's horn like this one and sounds the call to arms, rallying the fearful tribes behind him. This brings us to the incident of the Fleece, the most remembered yet most misunderstood of all Gideon's signs. It is commonly assumed that Gideon was asking for proof that God had the power to save them, but the fire erupting from the rock had already answered the question of divine power. Gideon was actually measuring something else entirely. He was asking whether the small merit of one single man was enough to carry a nation that had just been bowing down to idols. To test this, he asks that the morning dew fall only on an isolated fleece of wool, leaving the vast surrounding ground completely dry. Sadia Gaon reads this first sign as a miniature of the war itself. Gideon's isolated, singular merit will provide the initial strike that shatters the camp of Midian. Then Gideon reverses the request. The following morning, the fleece remains bone dry, while the dew falls equally across all the surrounding ground. This second sign reveals the next phase of the battle. After Gideon's initial strike, all of Israel will absorb that momentum and rise up to finish the rescue that one man could not complete alone. The massive invasion ultimately comes down to a quiet moment, on a threshing floor. One ordinary farmer turns a piece of wool in his hands in the cool, gray dawn. 7 years of devastation finally ended with the resolve of one man. The rescue of Israel hinged on the reality that a single righteous person can stand in the gap for an entire unworthy people.